Hello, my name is Will Schretzman, Vice President of Packaging for Verst Logistics. Title of my presentation today is Get in Sync with Can Shrink. And here's the agenda. Basic can facts, brief history of sleeves on cans, the current situation, and future options and initiatives. So here's some facts about aluminum cans. 100 billion cans are made in the US each year. The top 5 customers, Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, AB, and Miller Coors, account for 90% of the consumption of those cans. Despite that, growth in cans was relatively flat and predictable for several years. The craft beer industry changed that. From 2013 to 2016, the industry grew from a few craft breweries to over 7,200. At first, the can industry was excited about craft beer as a new growth category. But that excitement soon changed when thousands of breweries all wanted cans for their beers. Just managing the artwork became overwhelming. Lead times became extended, and minimum quantities that started with a few pallets per SKU increased to truckloads per SKU or more. Orders moved from a few weeks lead time to over 17 weeks. Cash flow concerns and the need for a faster turnaround time, along with the option to run smaller volumes, drove the industry to sleeved cans. Sleeve cans are bright or unprinted cans with a shrink sleeve applied. Unprinted bright cans were easier for the can manufacturers to manage. No artwork headaches to deal with, and these cans became readily available. Small orders were produced with digitally printed sleeves, while larger orders were produced with flexographic sleeves. No longer were the brewers limited by 6-color direct printed cans. Sleeves opened the door to higher fidelity graphics, as well as access to the special effects that only sleeves could provide. The creativity of the craft brewers was a perfect fit for sleeves, and adding the effects just made the cans even cooler. Effects such as tactile inks that provide a sensory experience, registered matte finishes where some elements remain glossy and others remain matte provided a premium look. Glow-in-the-dark inks, hollow foils. It was a really exciting time for the sleeve and can industry. So let's take a look at the current state of sleeve cans. 2020 has been an interesting year for all of us. Consumers staying home and not going out to restaurants or sporting events has created a huge demand for packaging, including cans. Add the demand for seltzers to the already strained can industry and you have a can crisis. Many larger brands who historically never had issues with getting cans are now on allocation. As they did with craft beer, bright cans provide a way to produce cans with a little more efficiency and satisfy customers who had the scale and could get printed cans before, but can't get them today. Once again, sleeve cans look to be one possible solution to the crisis. So one unique option is called a cover-up can. As I've discussed, we are currently in a can supply crisis. COVID-19 has really thrown a curveball into the industry. With any crisis, all options get put on the table, and one option many brands are utilizing is a cover-up can. By taking obsolete printed can inventory and applying a shrink sleeve with a hiding foil, they're able to utilize inventory and get product on the shelf. The shrink sleeve is printed as it normally would be, but 100% coverage cold foil is applied to provide the hiding needed to ensure none of the printed graphics show through. This has proven to be very effective. And in this environment, either you find a solution or you're in big trouble. So let's talk about aluminum can recycling. Every minute, an average of 123,097 aluminum cans are recycled. Aluminum is infinitely recyclable. Aluminum cans are melted in a furnace, contaminants are removed, the molten metal is poured into ingot cast to set, and each ingot can be made into around 1.5 million cans. So before I talk about more information about recycling cans, I'd like to have take us back to a little history back in 2012 when we all got together following the AWA Sleeve Conference here in Cincinnati to talk about how we were going to address recycling of PET bottles with PETG shrink sleeves. And we all got together and we brought everybody from the supply chain, from recyclers to printers to ink suppliers to brands. And for the last 8 years or so, we've really worked together to come up with some great solutions, with a goal of taking a sleeved bottle like this and converting it into very clean PET flake or recycled PET flake. But where I see that tying into what's going on with cans is, if you go back to 2012, we were kind of like in the Wild West, where we were just happy about the growth of shrink sleeves. We saw the beverage industry really taking hold of it, and it was growing rapidly, and we were all pretty excited. And what we did is we created kind of a recycling mess. And we all got together, kind of self-preservation mode, and we solved a lot of those issues. And the same thing, to me, appears to be happening with cans. From my conversations with recyclers, they're not too thrilled about sleeves on cans. They're considered contaminants, and although it is a small scale amount of cans that are sleeved versus the amount of cans that are not, as we grow this category, we really need to take a look at some of the techniques we've learned from PET bottles and incorporate them into cans. So let's talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart: perforations for sleeved cans. Perforations are very easily applied during the sleeve converting step on the seamer. And the typical spec for a perf is 0.5 millimeter land, which remains on the label, and 0.5 millimeter cut, which is actually the tooth that is used to cut through the sleeve. Now, sometimes these perfs, because of the orientation of the material, they don't like to tear very easily in the vertical direction. So you can actually add a tear tape on the seamer inside the perf to allow it to tear easier. This provides a little bit more for the customer to allow them to get it off of the can without the can sleeve spiraling around like we've all done when you remove a perf. So one initiative that Verst is looking into is thin gauge film for sleeve cans. A blank 12-ounce can weighs 10.483 grams. 45 micron film on a 12-ounce can weighs 12.123 grams. That is a 13.5% yield loss per can with 45 micron, meaning that if I am a recycler and I'm recycling this can and I do that by weight, I have not accounted for 13.5% of the weight, which is the sleeve. This is 45 micron film. And it's actually worse if you use 50 micron film. It actually goes up to 17% yield loss. Now, what we're looking into is 25 micron film on a 12-ounce can. That weight is 11.436 grams, or an 8.4% yield loss per can. So 25 micron film puts your yield loss at less than 10%, which in discussions with recyclers, they're pretty excited about. Obviously, it takes a little bit more finesse to apply a 25 micron sleeve versus a 45 micron sleeve, but obviously the look of the cans is the same and the feel is the same. And why not use a thinner gauge film and be more recyclable or friendly to the recyclers than using a thicker gauge film? So the future state of shrink labeling cans is done with state-of-the-art sleeve label application lines, high-speed, servo-driven, vacuum conveyors for gentle handling of empty cans and lightweight bottles, inline defect detection, new tunnel designs with reduced energy usage, high reliability and quick changeover designs, thin gauge film compatible, capable of 600 units per minute speeds. This, in conjunction with perforations, thin gauge film, collaboration with recyclers and brands, is how we get in sync with can shrink.